Hello everyone, this is Jasmine and welcome to my channel. Today we will learn React. We will start with creating a project. So let's first understand what is React. React is an open source front-end JavaScript library that makes it easy to develop user interfaces. React is component based. We write encapsulated functional component that can be composed together at will and reuse at our leisure. So the tools and setup. To work with React comfortably and without any interruptions, we need NPM and Node.js. So this is the official website of Node.js from where you can download or install the Node.js. So what you need to do is just write this command in your command prompt. Once it's been installed, you will get a notification, and after that you execute these commands. Node v, npm v. So it will give you the versions, which version of Node and npm is installed in your system. If it's giving you an error, that means there is some problem and you need to install it again. I will share this link in the description box. Now, components. We can cluster components into two different versions, functional and class component. Now the function components are expressed in the form of function. Class components was built on newly introduced ES 2015 classes. So the functional, these are the differences between them. Functional is this very simple way to define the component, while the class it extends the React.component and it has at least one method, that is render. Function components take in their props as a function arguments. Class components on the other hand cannot take in arguments and can only access their props by the instance method, this.props. So this is a small example of the functional components. So you declare it with function, the function name, pass the props. If there is no props, it's okay if you don't pass anything, and then return. In the return, you have to have a fragment, either div or anything, and then you can write your code. And this is the class component. So class name extends React.component, and there will always be a method render, and the return then you write your internal structure. The React components can include other nested React components. So it is important to know that a component can only ever return one root element. So it's like a single React element. This is how it will look. A nested form. So that will be like a parent and child. A DOM element. So this is how it will look. So a self-closing or a null. Components can be exposed into anything you like. Therefore, it makes sense to break up large and complex components into smaller and easier to read. Now let's start by creating the React project. So for React project, I'm using Visual Studio Code, but you're free to use anything else. Prettier is also a good option, but I'm quite comfortable with Visual Studio Code, so I will like to move ahead with that. So here I've opened the browser and it's just a folder. So now we need to create the React app. So we start by npx create -react -app and the name. So make sure whatever name you give, you keep it in the small. Don't put in the capital letters. React project. Now it will take some time and it will create the project. So here, as you can see, it has installed all the libraries in our project. So we need to type these commands first. cd react project and then npm start. So this is how our default React page is going to be seen. So here is our React project with the modules. There's a source, app.js. So this app.js is the main page. The header, the logo is coming from here, and this is the index.js file that executes it. So here you can see react.dom, react.dom.create root. So it will create our page. Now to create the components, we first need to create a component folder, new folder, components. In that we will create our React files. So let's start by creating a file, hello world .js. So here we start with our functional component. Now let's start by creating a function. So first we need to do is import React from React function hello world This is just a variable in which I'm passing some value. Return. This is an important statement. H1 and in the last we need to export it. Export default, the name of the function. So export default. So this line is really very important. If you don't write export the function name, so we won't be able to call it. Now we have just created a component with the name hello world. Now we need to declare it in app.js file. So here we need to import it. Import hello world from components hello world. So here this header we don't need it, so I'll just delete this part, and here I will write the name of my component hello world. So here you don't have to debug or run, you just need to save it. Once you save it, you open it into the browser, whatever changes you have done will be reflected. So here you can see hello world is displayed on the page, and here there was a React logo which I have deleted. Now let's create one more component. Let's create a child component, child.js. So the same way we need to import React from React function child So here I will pass this variable this constant, and the last thing we need to do is export default child. Now let's import this in our hello world. So here we import child from the child, and here let's wrap this h1 in a div. And here we call our child. Now let's see in the browser. So here you can see it is printing this is child. So this is like a parent-child relationship. Hello world is the parent and child, your child component is the child of it. And remember one thing, whenever you are writing a component, make sure that the first letter is always capital. If it's a small letter, it's not going to execute. Now let's understand props. Props enable components to receive any form of data and access it within the component. Props are always read-only inside the component and can only be read but not modified. Props are not limited to one nested layer. Now let's pass a prop to our component. So here we pass our props. Greeting is equal to hello. And here in the hello world, it will be, here we need to pass variable props, and with the greeting, first we need to append props.greeting. Now let's execute this. So here you can see hello is displayed. So in this way you can pass as many props as you want, and only thing is when we are at the receiving end, we need to append it with the props.greeting, props.name, props.last name. In that way we need to receive it. Now let's understand state. State is a built-in React object that is used to contain data or information about the component. A component state can change over time. Whenever it changes, the component re-renders. The change in the state can happen as a response to user action or system generated events, and these changes determine the behavior of the component. So let's understand this with an example. Let's create a component, a new file, state example.js. So first we will create a class component. Import React, then export default class, the name of the class, extends react.component. So in the class component, you can directly write your export default. So you don't have to write the extra line in the last. Now let's create a state and give it a value. This one. Now what we are doing is we are going to increment the value on the click of a button. So let's create first a button. In class component, we even have to write the render method. Render, and after that, and in that, return. We will wrap that button in div. So here we are going to display that value, this dot state dot value. On click, let's give it a name, update state. So we need to define this function. Update state. Here we are going to write it in the arrow function. This dot set state. So here we are going to set a value to the state, modify the state. Whenever we want to modify the state, we need to use set state. Value, this dot state dot value plus 1. So all we are doing is on the click of a button, every time it's going to increment, and that value we are going to display it over here. So in amp.js we need to call that component, import state example. Now let's see this in the browser. So here you can see a button is displayed. When we click on it, it changes the value. So this is because every single time we click the button, the old value is getting updated with the set state. Now let's create a functional component and user state. State example function.js. So here import React function state example So in function, as we have seen earlier, we need to have a return, and in return we will declare a button. So the same thing we are going to do it, but this is in the functional component. So here also we will create a button. We will wrap it in the div button on click. So here we'll give it arrow function. Set value. So what we have done is we need to declare this variable. So we are writing the logic on the click of the button itself. So we don't have to create a function and write it. So here when we declare in functional component, we declare the state with in this format. So value and set value. So set value is going to update it. So this is the value, this is the variable which will be having the value 1, and set value will always be called when we want to update it. Is equal to use state. So here we are passing a default value 1. Use state is always required when we are using state. So when we use use state, we also need to import it. So React is importing it for me. And we will print that value in the p tag value. Now let's see this in the browser. First we need to add this page in the app.js file. I forgot to write export default state. If we don't write export, then we won't be able to import this from anywhere. So here you can see another increment button. This comes from the functional component and the first one is from the class component. So as we click, it gets incremented. The same is with here. So this is how we can use state in our React. In the next video, we will understand how to use list and other things in React. If you like my video, please like and subscribe to my channel, and thanks for watching.